Some of you may remember this amplifier right here. This is the Heaven11 Billie Amp Mk2 that I reviewed way back. And it was a great value integrated amplifier, sounding really great, combining a tube preamplifier section with a Class D amplification section. And this is now the Mark II version of that. And let me tell you, while it may look very similar on the outside in terms of the appearance, it comes with more than just a few upgrades. And this may be the amplifier that everyone has been waiting for. And I know, I recently released a video with a very similar title on the Java Hi-Fi Carbon integrated amplifier. And there were a lot of comments complaining about the price point of the Java. And while I didn't really agree with most of the comments that seemed to imply that a hi-fi component should cost a certain amount or shouldn't cost a certain amount, I maybe also shouldn't have titled the video why this is the amplifier that everyone has been waiting for on a $13,000 piece. That was silly of me. No matter if the price is justified or not, I do agree that the title of the video did not account for the price. However, the reason I titled the video like that wasn't in reference to the price, but the technology and the sound quality that this integrated amplifier packed into one box to mimic a combination of gear that a lot of people, including myself, love. A tube preamplifier with a very good Class D amplifier. And that's where the Billie Amp Mk2 makes its mark. Coming in at a price point just under $2,000 USD at $1,939 at the time of this review, it's named after the iconic American jazz singer Billie Holiday, and strives to bring musicality, performance, emotion, and style all in a neat, minimal package. Utilizing a pair of JJ-ECC99 tubes for its preamplifier section and Ice Power Class D module for its amplification, the integrated amplifier effectively outputs the stated 120 watts into 8 ohms and 215 watts into 4 ohms. This is a significant upgrade in power output in comparison to the earlier Mark I version. And there are several other upgrades from the Mark I to the Mark II that will be listed here, as well as the link in the description below this video. The brushed aluminum casing is of better quality than I've seen from other brands at this price range and does come in my preferred color of black or silver. But also, what's really cool is that the knobs are customizable from different types of woods to marble to truly make it your own. But the Billie Amps from Heaven11 is more than just a tube preamplifier and a Class D amplifier in a sexy box. It also has a DAC with an ESS chip and a moving magnet phono stage built in as well as a Bluetooth 5.1. This makes it extremely easy to build a system catered towards your listening habits and preferences around the Billie Amp. Let's say you're someone with a large collection of records. No problem, add a turntable like the MoFi Ultra Deck or Project with a moving magnet cartridge and spin away you go. If you are more about the convenience at your fingertips, you can add a streamer like the Eversolo DMP-A6 or a Volumio or a WIM through the included digital inputs, either through coax or optical, and stream your favorite music to the Billie Amp within your fingertips. Have a CD player? No problem, you can use the coax input. No, don't want any of that and you just simply want to connect it to your existing TV in your entertainment or family room? No problem, once again, you can do so via the optical input or by using the included Bluetooth. This makes this unit an extremely versatile music station, and my only wish would be that there would be more input options like a USB, especially if you're someone like me and have multiple sources like a both CD player and a turntable and a streamer and so on. Aside from those options, the Billie Amp also hasn't forgotten about those that wish to use their separate DAC or separate streamer, as it has two analog inputs labeled aux5 and aux6. As well, it also has a set of pre-outs or line-outs, and you can use this to add subwoofers, active speakers, or a separate amplifier if you wish to. And with all of these features, it also has a dedicated update USB for firmware updates to keep the unit in play and relevant through the years to come. All of these input options are selectable via the small knob in the front faceplate with the little LED indications that corresponds to the inputs 1 through 6. While I do understand that the wish of the designer is to keep the unit minimal as possible without any labeling, and while it really wasn't an issue personally for me, it goes without saying that some may find it more annoying to select or memorize their inputs. Aside from the very nice speaker binding post to power the passive speakers, it also has a very decent headphone amplifier through the 3.5mm headphone output. And the great thing about the headphone section is that it sounds actually pretty darn good. I mean, really good. I actually prefer the headphone section's overall sonic quality and characteristic in comparison to even the speaker section out of this. So there you go. It sounds really good. It's on the warmer side of neutral, liquid. So, I'm not a huge headphone listener, but I mean, when I'm at my desktop, I do. And this is really musical sounding to me. Now, another great thing about the headphone section is that when you plug in your headphones, it automatically cuts out the speaker section. So you don't have to disconnect your speaker cables and do all that nonsense. It will automatically cut it for you so that when you plug in your headphones, you're only listening to the headphones and your speakers will not have sound coming out of them, which I prefer. Some people want both playing, the option there, so that's up to you. Now, moving away from the headphone section and talking strictly about the overall sound characteristic of this unit, it's a bit tough because if you're using the DAC inside this, I would say you're getting maybe 70% of the overall performance if I am being honest with you and if I'm putting it into numbers. But overall, it still sounds really good even with the DAC inside. But I would definitely say that the performance level has gone up when I was using my own separate DAC, for example, the Denafrips Ares 2 with my Orender streamer. And of course, the Orender is quite expensive since it's my reference streamer, but you can still use, Eversolo, Volumio, and all those other streaming options. If you're a turntable guy, you can use your turntable. And I've tried all those options and all of them sounded better to me than using the internal DAC in this. So there's still room for improvement if you do wish to use a separate DAC and a separate streamer. The DAC in this is pretty decent, but it definitely, in my opinion, is the bottleneck to the overall sound quality of this unit. Now, the output capability of this has gone up significantly as you saw before from the Mark 1. So powering speakers, not an issue. I mean, it wasn't before, it certainly isn't now. This gives you a lot of headroom, power, dynamics, and the overall sound quality, whether you are using a separate DAC and a streamer or the internal DAC itself, is going to be more or less going to be that warm, luscious sound like the Mark 1 with a robust bass. But here's the kicker. It seems to me that the Mark 2's refinement level and the overall detail retrieval level has become more, for the lack of terms, audiophile. And what I mean by that is that there's more nuance, more detail retrieval, and more refinement. Whereas before, I found that the unit was quite warm, now it's more balanced with the Mark II in my opinion. And a lot more audiophile qualities like imaging and sound staging has improved quite drastically in my personal opinion, comparing side by side with the Mark 1. Now, in comparison to something like the AGD GanFet module based amplifiers that I use as my reference and the carbon integrated amplifier that I just reviewed, this isn't as refined as those. And when I say refined, I mean that it's smooth on those units. So even with all the nuance and detail that those offer, I find that those are smoother, more nuanced, more detail, and I can hear all the little nuances and details with those units. But keep in mind, those units are fairly higher priced than this unit. Now, in comparing with something more comparable in this price range, would be something like the Orchard Audio GanFet amplifier that I just reviewed recently, and the Star Crimson is the name. And the Star Crimson, in my opinion, in comparison to this, is not going to be an apples to apple comparison, because the Star Crimson is again a solo amplifier, and a preamplifier pairing is going to matter a lot. But in general, I would say that the Star Crimson offers a faster bass, tighter bass, and a cleaner bass, while the Billie Amp Mk2 seems to offer a more textured bass. So it almost feels like it's textured. So it has a little bit of magic to it. And if you heard tube amplifiers, some really good tube amplifiers, it does have that textured bass that I'm speaking of. And while it may not be the fastest bass, it's not lacking in speed by much in comparison to the fastest, Orchard Audio GanFet design amplifier. I believe that it's somewhere between a tube amplifier's bass married to something like the Star Crimson. So you're gonna get some tube characteristic in that bass, but it's still going to be keeping up to speed while not being exactly as fast as the Star Crimson. So very adequate bass, has some texture to it, and you may like that, you may not like that, but I personally liked that quality. Now when it comes to the mid-range, personally for me, I really prefer the mid-range out of the Heaven11. Even with a tube preamplifier mated to the Star Crimson, I personally prefer the mid-range on the Billie Amp Mk2, since it has this really nice tube characteristic that I love very much. It's holographic, especially on those female vocals, guitar strings, saxophones. It's just done really well. That mid-range is meaty, textured, a little bit of grain in comparison to like the high-end amplifiers I'm talking about, and the Orchard Audio Star Crimson, which is very clean. This is not as clean, has some texture like I said, some graininess, but for me that added a little bit of that organicness I'm talking about with some amplifiers, added musicality. And when you listen to the mid-range, just the mid-range, and you focus just on the mid-range of this unit, it's almost like you're listening to a full-on tube amplifier. It's very nice. And when it comes to the high frequency, I would say that the high frequency, like I said, is a little bit more extended and airy in comparison to the Mk1, which gives this really nice balance overall, since you get this really nice meaty mid-range while having a pretty awesome airiness added as well on the Mk2 in comparison to the Mk1. And that gives off, a little bit more spaciousness, spatial cues and nuance. And again, more refinement than the Mk1, but not as much as the GanFet module alternatives. So for me, I think this is very tuned well. I think it's tuned for musicality rather than, taking all the nuance and detail out of the music. And if you sit back and listen to it, I mean, it's a very musical experience in my opinion. Now, I know I've compared it to separates, and that is probably unfair of me to this unit, since even the Star Crimson plus a tube preamplifier is going to be well past the price point of this unit. And it still, even then, keeps up in performance and overall musicality to my ears. And honestly, that has surprised me quite a bit, that this unit is able to keep up with separates in terms of musicality and that experience. And I think part of that reason is going to have to do with the soundstage this unit provides. It's very impressive both depth and width, but if I have to put my finger on it, I think the width is even more impressive than the depth it provides. So while the depth is quite good and it feels like you're in a private venue and you hear the singer far back and whatnot, and the layering is quite good as well, I feel that the width is quite exceptional on this unit. Sometimes, on some speakers I have tried, I hear things past my side walls, giving you an illusion of a bigger space, as if my room just got bigger. So that grand sound was what really got me, and adds to that musical experience, that openness and deep and wide soundstage. And I've tried a lot of different speakers with this unit, including the crescendos from Zen Acoustics, Totem Bison Twin Towers, Bocard S400 Mark II, closer acoustic 4-lane speakers, And the speakers I have behind me, these are the Joseph Crowe loudspeakers. And I've had this unit for quite a long time, so I've actually tried maybe 30 to 40 different pair of speakers in the time I had with this unit, and almost always gives that wide soundstage and that spaciousness. So I think that really adds to that musical experience that I'm experiencing with this integrated amplifier that keeps up with that musicality even with high-end amplifiers and separates that I'm talking about right now. And in comparison to some similarly priced integrated amplifiers, I tried comparing some, but again, it was apples to oranges rather than apples to apples, and I felt that it was more appropriate for me to compare this to something like the GanFet designs that I've been raving about, since this is a Class D amplifier in here with a 2 preamplifier section, and there's nothing really like it. The sound signature is quite unique, it's balanced, but it has that tube characteristic, and most solid-state amplifier or tube integrated amplifier in this price range is going to either be tube-like or more solid-state-like. This is somewhere in between, so it's kind of, again, not an apples to apple comparison, more apples to orange comparison. So for me, this is a very unique amplifier. The Mark I was, the Mark II is even better in my opinion. So it's going to depend on your budget, but also what you want and what direction you're going, since this unit offers way more than just a preamplifier and amplifier. It offers phono stage, Bluetooth. It's basically a hub, like I mentioned, for you to connect multiple sources and basically become a centerpiece in your listening experience. So it's gonna be up to you, but personally for me, I really liked the sound of this unit. I think it's done really well for an integrated amplifier at this price range, very unique, and gives off some musicality that I really haven't experienced in a lot of integrated amplifiers and all-in-ones, especially compared to solid state. You're gonna get some that mid-range magic of tubes that you're not gonna simply get with some solid state integrated amplifiers, regardless of really the price range. So yeah, I really liked it. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for following me along in this journey. And I'll hope to see you guys on my next video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me out greatly and it doesn't cost you anything. And I'll see you guys on my next journey, my next thing that I'll be checking out. Until next time.